Psychological horror is one of the hardest genres to get right. You don't have the luxury of relying on endless jump scares or buckets of blood. Instead, you need to create tension through atmosphere, uncertainty, and the fear of what might be hiding just outside the frame. Undertone clearly understands that. For a large portion of its runtime, it delivers exactly the kind of slow-burning suspense horror fans appreciate. It builds mystery patiently, creates an unsettling atmosphere, and introduces folklore in a way that feels genuinely intriguing. But despite all of those strengths, the film never quite sticks the landing. By the time the credits roll, what could have been one of the better psychological horror films of the year ends up feeling like a missed opportunity. So, was Undertone worth watching? Let's talk about it. The very first thing that stands out about Undertone is its atmosphere. From the opening scenes, there's an almost constant feeling that something isn't right. The environments feel isolated. The silence is uncomfortable, and the filmmakers don't rush to explain what's happening. That's actually one of the smartest decisions the movie makes. Instead of immediately throwing supernatural events at the audience, it lets the uneasiness build naturally. Every quiet moment carries tension, because you're constantly expecting something to happen. Interestingly, the film doesn't depend on loud music or cheap jump scares to create fear. Much of the suspense comes from what you don't see. The sound design deserves credit here as well. Rather than overwhelming every scene with dramatic background music, it often allows silence to do the heavy lifting. That restraint makes even simple moments feel unsettling. This slow burn approach won't appeal to viewers looking for non-stop scares every 5 minutes. But if you're someone who enjoys psychological horror that gradually gets under your skin, the opening act is genuinely effective. Another area where Undertone performs really well is its storytelling. The film understands that mystery is often more engaging than immediate answers. Every new scene reveals just enough information to keep the audience curious while still hiding the bigger picture. Instead of spoon-feeding explanations, it encourages viewers to connect the dots themselves. Questions continue piling up. What's actually happening? Are these events supernatural? Can the characters trust what they're seeing? Who or what is responsible? That uncertainty becomes the driving force behind the narrative. Even scenes with minimal dialogue remain engaging, because you're constantly searching for clues hidden within conversations, locations, and subtle visual details. The pacing during the first half reflects this perfectly. Nothing feels rushed. The filmmakers trust the audience to stay patient, and for the most part, that confidence pays off. One of the more refreshing aspects of Undertone is how it incorporates folklore into its story. Modern horror often relies on familiar haunted house formulas or possession narratives that audiences have already seen countless times. Undertone tries to move beyond that. Instead of using mythology as simple background decoration, it allows folklore to become part of the central mystery. That immediately gives the film more personality. Ancient beliefs, local legends, and traditional stories often make supernatural horror feel more authentic because they suggest these events existed long before the characters arrived. The result is a world that feels much larger than what is shown on screen. Rather than inventing horror from nothing, the movie makes it seem as though the horror has always existed waiting to be uncovered. That makes the mystery significantly more compelling. For fans of folklore-based horror, this is easily one of the film's strongest qualities. As impressive as the first half is, Undertone gradually starts losing the momentum it works so hard to build. The biggest issue isn't the story itself. It's the way certain scenes are presented. The filmmakers make heavy use of unusual camera movements, and while stylistic cinematography can absolutely enhance psychological horror, here it often has the opposite effect. Instead of increasing tension, these movements frequently become distracting. Rather than focusing on the emotions of the scene, you begin noticing the camera itself, and that's never ideal. Great cinematography should support the storytelling, not constantly remind viewers that someone is operating the camera. Some sequences feel unnecessarily over-stylized, almost as though visual experimentation became more important than maintaining immersion. Because of that, several scenes lose the impact they could have had. The tension that was building so effectively earlier begins to fade. Instead of feeling increasingly uncomfortable, the audience occasionally feels detached. It's not enough to ruin the film, but it's definitely noticeable. Another consequence of these creative choices is that the pacing starts to slow in the wrong way. There's a big difference between slow burn horror and slow storytelling. The first half is deliberate. The middle portion occasionally feels repetitive. Certain moments don't add enough new information or emotional progression to justify their length. The suspense plateaus instead of escalating, and in psychological horror, escalation is everything. Every scene should make the audience feel slightly more uncomfortable than the previous one. Here, the film occasionally circles around the same emotional beats without pushing the narrative forward. That doesn't make the movie boring, but it does reduce the intensity that made the opening act so compelling. Unfortunately, the film's biggest weakness arrives during its conclusion. After investing so much time into building mystery, suspense, and expectation, the ending simply doesn't provide a satisfying payoff. Without revealing spoilers, the climax feels surprisingly restrained. Instead of delivering a memorable emotional or psychological impact, it ends before reaching the level of intensity the story seemed to promise. Some viewers may interpret the ending as intentionally ambiguous. There's nothing inherently wrong with ambiguity. Some of the greatest psychological horror films ever made leave audiences with unanswered questions. But ambiguity only works when it feels meaningful. Here, the conclusion feels less like a carefully crafted mystery and more like an incomplete resolution. The emotional payoff isn't strong enough. The narrative payoff isn't strong enough. And because of that, the ending weakens the overall experience. It's disappointing because the film spends so much time earning the audience's investment, only to leave that investment feeling only partially rewarded. Undertone is a movie that clearly understands the fundamentals of psychological horror. Its atmosphere is excellent. Its opening mystery is genuinely engaging. The integration of folklore gives the story originality, and the film proves that horror doesn't always need non-stop jump scares to be effective. But maintaining suspense is only half the battle. Eventually, every mystery needs a payoff. Unfortunately, Undertone struggles during its later portions due to distracting camera choices, uneven pacing, and an ending that never reaches the emotional or narrative heights the setup deserves. That doesn't make it a bad horror film. Far from it. There's still plenty here for fans of slow-burn psychological horror to appreciate. It's simply a film that begins stronger than it finishes. And sometimes, that's even more frustrating than a movie that's consistently average. Overall, I'm giving Undertone a 6.8 out of 10. If you're someone who enjoys atmospheric horror, psychological mysteries, and folklore-driven storytelling, it's definitely worth watching at least once. Just don't go in expecting a finale that fully rewards the excellent foundation the film spends so much time building. For more movie reviews and recommendations, please subscribe to my channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.